Hi guys, and welcome to another session of Honest Talk About Women, where you'll learn tips, tricks and strategies on how to navigate the minefields of dating and relationships. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and also comment in the comment section. It all helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you've got a story you want to share with viewers, you can contact me. My email address listed below. Okay, let's get right into it. This one's a big one, guys. How to parent. That's a question that's been asked for thousands of years, and at the moment there's volumes and volumes of books you can read, but this is the abbreviated version, all in 10 or 15 minutes. Let's get right into it. So you need to cross a lot of paths before you even get to this track, and that means you need to have your own mental capabilities in order. You need to be in a good frame of mind. You need to be in a financial preferably in a good financial situation before you even start thinking about having kids. And then when you do start to have thinking about kids, you've got to find someone, a female, to have kids with. And that is a biggie. That is huge, okay? So it's not that easy anymore trying to find a partner or a wife, girlfriend who has similar values. And as you go through life, you may have different values at different stages in your life. In your 20s, you want a party girl and you want to go out and do the party. In your 30s, you want to be a bit more serious and find a woman who can have your kids. So it varies throughout your life, but this video is purely about you found your partner after so many months, years, decades, whatever, and you want to have a family and you're serious. And believe it or not, the majority of people out there still want to have kids, even though there's a decrease in amount of people who are becoming single, and it is increasing, and there will eventually be the majority one day, single people. But at this stage, I can say pretty much in New Zealand, most people want to get married and have kids, and it's not something to be thought lightheartedly. If you're going to have kids, then yes, marriage is the best concept. You've got a lot of people on YouTube saying, don't get married, don't get married, don't get married. I understand where they're coming from. I'm in my mid-50s, and I'm not going to get married again. I've been in marriage twice, and it's not for me at this present stage in my life to get married a third time. I'm happy to be single and have girlfriends here, there, and everywhere. So this is for people maybe in their late 20s, early 30s who are considering getting married and having kids. And congratulations, you've come across a lot of steps to get this far, and it can be an exciting time. It was an exciting time for me and my first wife when we decided to have kids. So this is not to be taken lightly, because kids do not ask to come into this world. And once they come out, you cannot put them back in. So you've got to be prepared, guys, and it's a lifetime commitment. It's a lifetime commitment, and people can come and go. And I've had a couple of wives come and go at my reckoning. And I've got 2 daughters. So again, there's a lot of people offering advice on parenting who have never had kids or have no results to show. And I've got 2 lovely girls, 18 and 20, very, very stable, very, very sensible, will not do the drugs, will not do the alcohol. If they go to a nightclub, they say, what time do I need to be home, Dad? I say, you tell me, you be sensible. And they come home at a sensible hour, and they're not smelling of smoke, they're not drugged out, they're not vomiting, they're sensible. So let's get into this. You've decided to have kids, and what is the best parenting style? Well, to tell you the truth, you need to change your parenting style as the kids go through their cycle. So kids change, and a 0 to 1 year old is the infancy, and that's highly intensive, very labor intensive, and that's 0 to 1. And then there's the toddlerhood phase, the 1 to 3 year olds. Sometimes they call it the terrible twos because of the temper tantrums, because their little brain can't understand adult logic. So there's going to be conflict. The preschool age, 3 to 5, it's an exciting time, and it's quite a formative stage for their character, their personality. The school age, 5 to 7, the kids get off your hands for a certain amount of time. They're at school between 9 and 3, and it's quite a long period of time, 5 to 12. And then there's the adolescence phase. That's where they go through puberty, and there's all sorts of challenges associated with that. So at all those different stages, those 4 different stages, you've got to change your parenting style. And I've seen this time and time again where a mother cannot relate to her kids because she's very highly geared on the corporate end, and she can't communicate with an infant, or a toddler or a preschooler. She's so high up in terms of complication in her personality that she can't do the simple things with kids. And I saw this quite evidently with my first wife, who was a full-on corporate chick, and she was very, very good at what she did, but she just could not communicate with kids at the very early stages, or my two daughters. And as they get older, 18 and 20 now, she now has a motherly, daughterly relationship with the girls, purely because the girls can now sort of connect more with her adult speak, and they couldn't do that before. So, and I've seen it the other side too, where there's been a kindergarten mother who was fantastic in the infancy, the toddlerhood phase, and then the preschool phase. Absolutely superb. But when it gets from 5 onwards, they sort of can't connect or can't match intellectually the children as they go through the school and the adolescent phase. And that's when you need someone else to bridge that gap, maybe the father. It worked well in my situation when I grew up. We had a mother who was a kindergarten teacher, and she was brilliant in those early phases, and then my dad sort of took over as we sort of entered the adult world and had more adult conversations with them. So again, picking a running mate who can have kids, I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but if you do decide to have kids, then you've got to put your best effort forward. So it's very, very tricky. And this is the only time I recommend someone is to enter the marriage contract. It's been around for thousands of years. There's a reason for it. They don't want too many kids running around on the street without parents or with one single parent. They wanted a two-parent household to bring up kids. And there's a reason for that. From the stats that come out, two-parent households have more successful kids than single-parent households. I know there's a lot of successful single-parent households out there, and I'm not knocking them, but the stats show that most kids who end up in prison or drug overdose or various other fallings have usually come from single-parent households. So it is a lot better if you have two parents. So that's my bit on that. So another thing that's been told to me throughout life is, in most cases, apples don't fall far from trees. And I remember someone telling me that, and I looked at the person, and he was actually right most of the time. Most of the time, apples don't fall far from their trees. So if you look at someone in the street and you look at their daughter or son, they're usually a splitting image of the parent. And even the habits, whether they are articulate or are a slob, it just falls down onto the kid. The kid subconsciously inherits those behaviors. So I'm saying most of the time, because you always have success stories of someone who was born to an alcoholic father. The mother was a drug addict. He put himself through university. He skimped and saved and had part-time jobs to get him through college, and he became very successful. There are success stories out there, so you can't always say that apples always fall close to their tree, because there are success stories of people that have had derelict parents who didn't have any parenting skills and have become very successful. So I'm a firm believer the first 7 years of parenting is so crucial, okay? It's so crucial. That's the formative stage of a person's character. And if you put the time and effort into the first 7 years, then the later years should be a breeze. No, you shouldn't have to incur massive psychological counselling bills, therapy bills. If you do the early graft, the early work, then you should have a good run later on with fewer headaches. So when I say the first 7 years, you've got to be around for them. You've got to take them to the sports games. You've got to positively encourage them. You build the tree hut in the backyard. You got to go down to the beach and do the sandcastle thing. It's all about developing people, and it's a lot of hard work, because your mates want you out on a golf course, or they want you to play soccer, or they want you to go away with them on a boys' weekend, and you got to say no to most of that, because the priority when you have kids is the kids, and you come second. So it's a lot to ask for a lot of people these days. They've been brought up as maybe the only child, or they've had everything centered around them, and for them to reverse that and put the kids first is a big ask. So I do understand that. But in my situation, my kids came first when I was bringing them up, and I put a lot of effort into them. I remember spending 3-4 hours on netball courts trying to take the trainer wheels off on their bicycle. And this perseverance, and it was a hot day, and they fell off and they cut themselves, but they got there. And they were able to ride their bike balancing without trainer wheels. That's the sort of stuff you got to do. I know not everyone's cut out for it. I know we live in a very fast-paced society, but what is it? What is life without family? End of the day, it's family. And family is really important. So when you are bringing up kids, you got to be the role model, okay? So you got to limit the alcohol. No boozy sessions with your mates, obviously no drugs. When you've got kids jumping on your bed at 6 o'clock in the morning and you've been out with the boys and you're hungover, there can be a nuclear reaction. So you never lose your temper in front of the kids, because they'll think that's normal. If you hit them, then there's a good chance that they'll hit their kids, and the cycle continues. So you got to be a positive agent, and you got to be on your game the whole time. And I know it's hard for a lot of guys who have been single, partying, and then they have their first child, and they've got to turn that tap off, and it's hard. And I know a lot of women who have been party girl, and they have their first child, and they can't handle it, and they suffer postnatal depression. And it's all about flicking the switch over to putting the kids first, and pulling back a little bit from your social life. Obviously, you can't turn off your social life and have your whole focus around kids. But you need to, you can still have your date night every Tuesday night or Thursday night, whatever it is. Still have a date night with your wife. But your focus is the kids. Now, the other extreme is you don't want to be a helicopter parent. Now, a helicopter parent in the West is referred to as someone who tells their kids, put your left foot this way, put your right foot this way, don't do this, don't do that. And they're forever micromanaging their kids. And I see it all the time. And when that kid finally moves out or goes out into the real world, they still are asking for advice from their parents, and they're not that worldly at all, and they're falling behind their peers that are moving ahead with their careers and in relationships. So do not micromanage your kids. You got to let them get their toes wet, and kids. A lot of them, especially boys, like to do things by feel or seeing rather than being told what to do. So, Daddy, is the fire hot? And you say, yes, son, the fire is hot. Do not put your hand in the fire. And they put their hand closer to the fire, and they feel, oh, how hot it is. So that's the sort of mentality you're dealing with. And you can't be too much of a helicopter parent. You got to learn that if they do something wrong, there is consequences and there's pain associated with it. Another thing is, don't bring them up too comfortably. You want them to get out of the house. You don't want them living at home when they're 30. So if you're making dinner every night of the week, you're doing their laundry, you're making their beds, you're cleaning their room, forget all that. They'll never leave. That's Hotel Hilton. Don't do that. They've got to make their own bed at a certain age. They've got to cook one night a week at a certain age. They've got to keep their room tidy. They've got to contribute to the living chores, and make them interactive with the house. It's not a hotel you're running. And when they're a certain age, get them to get a part-time job and get them to start learning the feel of money, and stop paying for everything. So obviously the primary focus is education, and a part-time job should not interfere with education. So education is the ticket out of poverty, or the ticket for freedom. It usually comes with an income stream depending on what you do. So if you do a highly specialized course like surgery of the heart, that takes 7 to 10 years to be fully functional. After all that, in terms of training, then you're off to a very good income in your 30s plus. So, but you don't have to go to university to get an education. You can also do a trade, and the best education of all is life, the University of Life, and that's where you learn a lot. As long as you can take things in, you're socially aware of how things are developing, and you can perceive and navigate your way through things. So, education is super important, but it depends what type of education it is. And as we all know, the best education is the education of life. Usually in life, there's two roads, the private sector road that leads to business and the public sector road that leads to government. And most kids go up one of those routes. And me, I've been purely in the private sector, and I love the private sector, and you've got freedom, and you're not regimented by a lot of rules and regulations and political correctness, but also you've got the public service sector where some people decide to go. So it'll be interesting to see how your kids evolve and how they go down the track, but your obligation is to give them the best possible send-off. And that's nurturing them, parenting them, and educating them. And I remember someone telling me once that the most important education is the education in the home. You can send your kids to private schools and they can be complete dunces. And I've seen it time and time again in my city of Auckland, where parents have sent their kids to the best private schools, spent $20,000 a year on educating their kids, and the kids turn out to be complete dunces. So they drop out of school, do the drugs, and become unemployed, and their brain gets fried and their markability goes right down. So a bit of a disappointment to their parents, but it was really the education in the home most times where a kid gets their learnings from. So you've really got to have a happy, conducive home to make sure your kids get nurtured properly. Yes, there are associations with kids that if they hang out in the bad crowd and they're easily led, they can go off the track and do the drugs and things like that. And that does happen. I understand that. So it's not always education in the home. Sometimes kids can get taken off onto the wrong track by bad association. So that's basically it in a nutshell, guys. You've got to be around for your kids. If you put it in early, you're off to a good start. And you've got to know how to make that switch when you have kids, putting yourself second, and it makes you humble having kids. And if you're doing the hard yards for those first 7 years, it makes it easier going down the track. And you've always got to be around, and you've got to be positive and don't have a temper, and try and develop them into the best possible person they can be. I'm not going to go into genetics because that's a completely different video. What your partner's genetics are like, her health record, and how that goes on to the kids, that's different altogether. This is more about nurturing the intangible, and you've got an obligation, you've got a job to do, and if have got healthy, productive kids, then you can pat yourself on the back and say you've done a great job, because it ain't easy and it's a lot of hard work. So that's it. I hope you got something out of it. Don't forget to purchase Alpha Dating on Amazon Kindle. Great purchase, offers all the green and red flags about relationships. Until next time, take care.